On this thing. Oh. We have everybody. Are we unmuted? Outstanding. Well, good morning. I will go ahead and call our budget retreat to order. And just want to thank all of our department heads and staff for the work in preparation coming into this meeting. I know each of you are very passionate about your professions and kind of your mission as it relates to the town, and we greatly appreciate all that you do. As we move into this discussion, I just hope that everybody doesn't take anything personally. We have very limited resources, and while we would love to do everything that we possibly could for our citizens, we have to make difficult decisions to fit within their resources. So just encourage everybody to work together, don't take anything personally, but also speak up. You know, as a department head, you may know something that's mission critical for the services that we provide for our citizens. And if we get into those zones of cutting something that's mission critical, or even discussing options like that, please speak up, speak freely, so we make sure that we don't critically degrade the services we provide. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Really, we're going to get to the process pretty much come through every year. It's certainly the last couple of years. Bob is going to go over some trends and give you some history that we kind of set the stage as we're really going. We will then have the opportunity for all of the department heads and they can discuss their budget discussion. And then we will present you with the proposed budget, which at this moment is ballot. And so that's a lot of number crunching from Rhonda and Dan. I really appreciate the work on that. And then we're going to wrap things up with a discussion of the budget custom. That's pretty much our day. And with that, I'll take it back over to you.
All right. Well, does anybody have any? Oh, one thing I did want to share. Chris and I have an engagement that we have to leave 11, 20, 30-ish something. So please don't take that as any disrespect. If you're the one speaking or need to part, and Mayor Pro Tem will be administering the meeting at that point in time. And with that, we'll turn it over to you, Ms. Ron. So thankful for you to be here.
Well, I'm thankful to be here. Always thankful. Just have a good day. Good morning to all of you. And I'd like to echo what Mr. Mayor said as far as it was a group effort. We had lots of meetings and all department heads and input from council. So it was definitely a group effort. So I appreciate that. Excuse me. I will say that if there's anything that I miss explaining or something that I have not connected the dots on, please stop and ask. After you look at the numbers for a long time, sometimes you just assume you've made a connection, and if I haven't, you will not offend me at all. Please ask. And I'm gonna see if I can be a big girl and use my own clicker. The first thing, kind of a look back, I wanted to look at our last audited financial statement. Which was 623. We had revenues of right at 40 million, expenses of about 42, which did include some capital expenditures. And then other revenue and other expenses, but netted out at 3 million. We ended the year with a surplus of 1.3 million, which I think is pretty good. Trying to estimate revenues. We did have a lot going on that year. Actually, the last 2 years, we bought and sold real estate. We had ARPA funds. So I kind of had to redo the statement a little bit to try to show what true operations look like, because we did have a lot of different things going on. So that was a challenge. Oh. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of opportunities that we've had. And I mentioned COVID and ARPA. COVID wasn't necessarily fun, but it did bring us ARPA to give us some funding that we were able to do some things that we probably wouldn't have been able to do. Staff turnover, that's never a good fun thing to go through, but I think we've made it through several long-term employees that have left and other turnover. And it kind of gives your organization a chance to look at things in different ways. And I think that's good. Growth, that's all capitals because that's on the top of everybody's mind and we just deal with it every day. We're lucky that we have stable revenue sources. Along with the economic outlook of our local and state area, we live in a good place. And obviously anything could change tomorrow, but I think we're in pretty good state. Sale of real estate, we've been able to sell some real estate. We may have some other real estate to sell that we can use to either better suit the town, locate different facilities somewhere, or just to kind of get slim. The other thing that I would really like, I know we can't do it this particular time, is develop kind of a long-term funding plan. What does long-term look like? Not only for operations, for capital and infrastructure and personnel. It's hard when we're looking at just a 12-month period and we're 18 months out planning, and a lot of things that we do affect more longer, 3, 5, 10 years. So I hope we can get to that in the next few years before I retire. Also, I wanted to show a 3-year revenue summary. It has 22 actual, 23 actual, proposed 24, which is the budgeted numbers, and then projected where I think 24 is going to land. So going from 22 to 23, we had a millage increase. Also in those 2 years, we sold real estate. Miscellaneous income is higher in those 2 categories. So we sold real estate in both of those line items. So reason that 23 went, proposed 24 went down is because the real estate sale was not there. This does not include transfers or anything like that, but just kind of a snapshot of kind of where we've been and kind of where we are at this point. So the composition, let me go back one minute. I want to show you one thing. On all of these years, you'll notice that property taxes and licenses are the lion's share of our revenue. So we depend heavily on property taxes and licenses. That's not a secret. Everybody knows that. I think it's been that way. I think it's that way for every municipality. But just understanding what we depend on for our revenue is really important. And of course, thank you, Chris. He put a nice colorful graph together to show, exactly a picture of what that roughly 75% looks like for 24. This is a graph that shows those same revenues in the chart, but it kind of shows that we're pretty much tracking on. The colorful bars are what we did in FY23. The red line is where we were actual FY22. The white line is where I'm projecting us to be, and then the blue line is the budget. So we're right on target as where we thought. So good job for that. Any questions before I move on?
Are we facing the items today here on what's proposed or projected?
I'm sorry.
Are we looking at overall what we're projecting to make?
Yes. Yeah, my revenue chart shows what I'm projecting us to end the year at as a measure of where we want to set the budget for next year.
Just as our proposed and projected. That's not 1%.
Yeah, I probably should have changed that to budgeted. Well, yeah. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, I wanted to also highlight and thank you to everybody who's been a part of this. We have our budget and we have operations, but we also realize that we cannot fund the projects that we need to fund within our town on our budget. It just won't work. So we've been in contact with our local, state, and federal partners to try to secure funding for different projects. So we have employed or have a potential $72 million that we're looking at to fund some projects. So that's going to be a tremendous help to our town and to our area.
This runs.
Yes, sir.
That OPM.
I love it.
My favorite thing. Not this one.
I know.
Other people's money. We have the opportunity to leverage other people's money. That really helps us out. So thank you all who fight for that. Of course.
Yeah, so,
And I want to point out, so 40 million is already, so of that 72 million in requested, 40 million has
so just to, yeah, so I mean, I can go over, the public safety complex, the Maple Street Extension, Cedar Street Extension, the Main Street Resiliency program. And that's we already have that 4 million, and we're getting, Frank, thank you for all the work you've done on all this as well. Central Avenue sidewalk, and then the parks expansions. We have some Oak Brook TIF money, splash pad, some of the state money, and this doesn't even include our HUD allotment from CDBG and some of the police grants that we get from DOT, DOJ. So there's other funding that we are very, very fortunate to be able to secure to help us do the work for this town. Okay. Quickly, this is not a surprise to anybody either, but just want to kind of go over some of our goals. Obviously, we want to be good stewards of our taxpayer dollars, first and foremost, be efficient. We want to maintain competitive wages. Good people do good work for this town. Develop a capital funding plan. The last several years, we've all struggled with how do we fund capital, and then we certainly want to maintain the current millage and do not want to increase that. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about assessed value, how we get our property taxes, and what's behind some of those numbers, because it is such an important part of our budget. So, which on the right one. So this is a slide that shows a breakdown of our assessed value from Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties. We have a total of about 300 million. Obviously, the biggest portion is from Dorchester County, and obviously the biggest portion is real estate. So I did want to try to explain the local option sales tax, because that's kind of a odd negative number that's sitting over there. Charleston County and Berkeley County have a local option sales tax. The state sends us money monthly as far as what our share is of that. So at the end of the year, I have to calculate what that number is, and I send back to the treasurers of Berkeley County and Charleston County and say, okay, we're going to roll back, or our sales tax credit to your properties is X%. So they basically take the tax bill. If you live in Berkeley County or in the town of Somerville, then you get a credit on your tax bill of a portion of this. On my financial statements, the local option sales tax shows up in other state revenue. But when I actually receive the money from the treasurers, it is a property tax amount less a sales tax amount. So I have to make sure I compensate for that when I'm projecting sales tax, property tax revenue, that I don't double count it. Is basically. So I just kind of wanted to show you, and it's roughly about $2 million that we actually send back to the residents of Berkeley and Charleston County that reside in the town of Somerville. Not residents and businesses. So there's some businesses, especially in Berkeley County, that we'll see that that really benefit from that. Is that confusing enough?
Just to make sure we understand, the local option sales tax is a win for the town overall.
Oh, yes.
I know as she talked about it, it looks like we're losing, it may sound like we're losing. It is an overall win. It was a great and consider that something.
So we send back approximately 70%. So we really retain 30% of that amount, as far as our normal operating budget. So it's definitely a win. And it's a win for those businesses and residents that live in those counties as well. I also wanted to make you aware of, we talked about the TIF, Oak Brook TIF and the Midtown TIF. The Oak Brook TIF is the TIF that the county manages. And the way that works is when they establish the TIF, there's a baseline of value. And that baseline stays the same throughout the life of the TIF, which is 20 years, 25 years. Any increase in values, any additions, new construction, that all gets added to what they call the increment. But that base can never change. So it's really important, for me, when I'm doing math, is to understand that that $35 million that's in those two TIFs, that is not going to go up. So if I'm projecting an overall 10% increase in property tax values, then, but that's not going to change. So I'm really projecting more than that because the growth on this is going to be 0. And that represents about 16% of our total assessed value for our, what I call our portfolio, our values. Does that make sense?
Well, we discussing budget items specifically for the TIF, for the amount of money that's in that over TIF is counted. Because it looks like based on what's in there and what we have proposed, there's a big difference.
The Oakbrook TIF is managed by the county. I can ask them to get me a report on what's there. But I don't have a budget presented for the Midtown TIF. The county sends me the increment dollars and I set that aside in a separate fund. And then right now we're paying debt service out of that. We may have a small shortage this year that has to come out of roads funds to fund the debt service. But I expect next year that we'll be able to pay ourselves back and that will not happen. But I can get you whatever details you need on that.
But if I remember correctly, those tips are performing better than originally modeled.
That's correct.
So while we are going to take some funds, it's less than we anticipated from the original model when we went into the agreement, correct?
That's correct. And actually, and with reassessment, I feel like it'll be even less because in reassessment, all the increase in value belongs to the TIF. So all these properties in this base, they're reassessed, the increase goes into the TIF. So I didn't ask David Cheatwood if he, estimated that in his model, probably not. That's kind of a difficult thing to do. So they should be performing very well.
The increments that you have here is showing the first sheet, that's what's already there. That's what's already.
Yes, that's based on the
that's
20,
already the approved value of the property.
that's the 2023 tax year, the bills that were sent out in the fall. And that's the county's calculation of what the increase is, what the increment is.
So that would essentially be our other operating expenses too. Right. That would essentially be additional revenue. That would be.
Oh, if we didn't have the TIF.
Yeah.
If we didn't have the TIF, absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I did. I put the millage in the far right hand, just to show you. I mean, that's not our money
Right.
that we can spend, but just to show you what we have contributed in millage inside those TIFs.
So like the Midtown TIF, we're not paying for the North Maple Street with that, we're counting transportation tax paying for that.
That's correct. So this is just the town's portion. The Midtown TIF actually receives a lot more than this in it to service our debt because we get school district portion and county portion. So we get more money than this, but this is just what comes out of what the town really contributes toward the TIF.
So we still budget on what we're going to spend, but we'll set the Midtown TIF.
Midtown TIF, yeah, and I don't think we've done anything on that. I mean, the money that we had set aside for the road that we're not using, we basically have it in the investment and identified it, I believe, for the public safety.
It's $2 billion that's being contributed. The public safety complex falls either, I thought it fell right outside the Midtown district, but we're allowed, depending on that, we have no, it's yeah.
Any other questions on this slide?
Anything over to budget, right?
No, the county, Mr. Byers and his staff will handle the, budget of the Oak Brook TIF. And I'm sure that, they will supply me whatever information that I want, so I can get some more information on that. Okay, next slide before we leave, assess value. I just kind of wanted to show you again the trends as far as real estate goes, what the change is from 2022 to 2023. I think probably, compared to most municipalities across the state, this is a healthy increase. Obviously, we don't know if it will continue. I think all signs say that, we will have healthy increases. Also, it's really important to understand the distribution between residential and commercial. And in Berkeley County, we have 75% commercial and 25% residential. In Charleston, it's exactly the opposite, 72% residential and 28% commercial. And we're really close to 50-50 in Dorchester County. In 2009, we were 56% residential and 44% commercial. And, we love all our taxpayers, and I think being, historically, we were a residential community, and now we have businesses and commercial properties that can actually service our citizens, and they don't have to drive somewhere else to go do fun things and all of that. So, with infill and some other things, I feel like maybe the commercial will start to increase a little more. Any comments? I like when I find interesting things. And along those lines, I wanted to show the COs that were issued in 2023. And this is kind of, I know it's probably hard to see, this is kind of a breakdown of the town. A number of COs in the Midtown TIF area. And the permit value on this was about 72 million. Now, permit value may have zero to do with assessed value, but at least it's a piece of data. And we can compare it. I think this year we were predominantly residential in 2023. This year so far, we are about 50-50, I think, with commercial and residential. And we're about 84 million, I believe, with permit value. So like I say, you can take that for what it's worth. We depend on contractors, I think, to tell us what the job is going to cost. So, hey, maybe it really costs a lot more than that. And then here's and then here's just a breakdown of Midtown TIF that kind of shows some of the development areas in there. Any questions, comments? So I think this is one more slide about property tax revenues. What affects our property tax revenues? Obviously, if you sell a property, that will affect the value, construct a new property. If you improve an existing property, we have had a couple of instances where we're changing status. Nonprofits do not pay property taxes. So there is a case where, a for-profit entity can sell a property to a nonprofit, or they can change ownership, and that kind of reduces the tax revenue. I don't think that happens a lot, but that is something we have to be aware of. And obviously the last is reassessment. And that is a whole nother complicated topic that we'll get into later. And again, I wanted to make sure you understood that any increase in value with respect to reassessment belongs to the TIF. So I wanted to, we talk about taxes, and a lot of our citizens, they get one tax bill, has the county taxes, it has the town taxes. They don't necessarily see or pay attention to what is town and what is county and what is other things. And all of the entities on this tax bill need their funding to operate. But I wanted to show this particular tax bill is mine. And I pay $555 a year in town taxes. And that's pretty good for the service that we get from our public safety, the Parks and Rec that I have access to, and all the town services. And that stays the same for 5 years until reassessment. Now, I will pay more next year, there's no doubt. But I think sometimes, I think that's just a point that's kind of missed sometimes is how little it really is. And so if you think about $555, the consumer price index, which that's kind of a measure in millage and some other thing for the last 3 years are 4, 8, and 4. So prices have increased. So you look at my revenue that I pay the town, and the town's a consumer. So the gas we bought, the office supplies we buy, all the things that we have to buy, buying pipe liners and all that, the prices are going up. So the prices are going up and the revenue's staying the same. That's a tough model to operate in. So food for thought. Okay, now I'd like to go into some revenue projections. Any other questions about any of that before I move on? And I know this has lots of colors, but there are a lot of numbers on here, and I wanted to just be able to point some things out. Of course, the first category is property taxes. I projected what I think will come in at FY24, and on real property taxes, which is the second line, I think we're going to be a little bit over budget. And I projected an 8% increase in dollars for property taxes and a 5% increase in vehicles. Just based on some of the trends I saw, I feel like that's kind of a safe estimate. I also wanted the far right-hand columns. The percents are good, but when I'm projecting more than what we've taken in this year, I want you to know what the dollars at risk are. And, you know, the dollars increased over last year's budget and the dollars that I'm projecting increase over what the projected total is. So if I'm wrong, you know, for real property taxes, there's $1.1 million kind of at risk there over what I'm projecting the year to come in at. Does that make sense? So for property taxes, I'm expecting our revenue to approximate 18.9, just under 19 million. Franchise fees, the cable TV franchise fees, those are declining. I cannot see a scenario where that is going to increase unless there's some legislative change in that. Electric and gas, I believe that will increase. When Dominion first took over, I think we had a little bump where it did not increase, but I see that increasing. We have more residences, we have more properties. I think that will increase. So I'm projecting that to be at just under 2.4 million. Business licenses, I'm projecting that almost flat at about 13.3. I think we probably do have some room for an increase there. It's just very difficult to tell. Business licenses are based on a gross income from a business. And so I don't have the information. I looked at some trends, and the trends that I looked at don't tell me that every business in town is increasing their gross income. So it's hard to say that. And our rates adjusted with the state requirement. So it's been a kind of a difficult thing to project. And for this year, we won't know until the end of June what our real business licenses are. We're renewing now. Dan's been multitasking, trying to process business licenses and help with the budget. So that's kind of where we are on there. Building permits, that's pretty much of a flat increase as well. Although we have a lot of growth, but we have a lot of growth now. So are we going to have more growth than what we have now? That's a tough thing to do, and I don't really want to leverage taxpayer dollars on that when the money's not that much. Municipal court fines, I'm leaving their estimate at 275,000. And here's a section for local option sales tax and government revenues. That's a small increase. I'm estimating at 4.47. And you'll see the top two lines of 450,000 and 2.4 million of local option sales tax from Charleston and Berkeley County. That's the money that I actually tell the treasurer, take a piece of this and reduce those taxpayers' property tax bill. And there's some small items related to that. Aid to subdivisions is appropriated by the state legislature, and it went up 5%, and that's confirmed number. Any questions on that? Next section is Parks and Rec, special events. I have a small increase projected there at 392,000. I see things continuing to increase. But again, I'd rather come in a little bit under in that category than take a big leap. Our miscellaneous income, just under 2 million. Half of that is the reimbursement from the school district. So the expenses related to SROs are included in the police department budget. But this is a separate revenue item that I bill them quarterly for the expenses associated with that contract. And interest income, I left flat. At this point, I don't see any signs of a reduction in interest rate to a big degree. But I don't want to, I'm not going to take any chances on that item either. And I don't know what the Fed will do. That's out of my ballpark. And I will say, if you look at the most recent financial report presented to council, interest income is a lot more than this. That will get redistributed to other funds that have money in it that interest income really belongs to. Although on our monthly report, sometimes it sits in the general fund, it will get distributed to the other funds, like Main Street Resiliency, that's $4 million. And I've got it sitting at the state treasurer's office earning about 5%. So that will, it all gets to me in one lump, but it will get distributed before the year end. Transfers in. I think this is the first year that we are just sticking with hospitality and state accommodations. We are not projecting any transfers. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not projecting any transfers from any other funds. We've searched in previous years. We wanted to take money from Ryan and from sanitation, and we had ARPA and other things, but we really wanted to just stick with what our core is with hospitality and state accommodations. We did increase hospitality by 200,000. So total revenue projected is just under $47 million for the year.
No.
Not for operations.
Or capital.
Maybe. To be continued.
Tough discussion we had.
Right.
Don't spoil it. All right, speaking of fund balance. I put together a little history, changed our fund balance policy. So I put together what was presented in the audit for 622, 623, and what I expect 624 to look like. So you see in 623, the says the under fund balance about 3/4 of the way down, the 2,059,000. That was the money we appropriated for capital that we used in our budget. So the auditors have to say they've already budgeted that out of fund balance. So I'm taking it out of what is unallocated, which is certainly appropriate. And also we had already adopted our new fund balance policy, increase in disaster recovery from 3 million to 5 million. So that's why the 5 million that's in the far right column is broken down between the assigned, the 3 and the 2, it equals the 5, because the auditor said, really, even though their policy wasn't in effect, they've already adopted it. That's what it's going to look like next year. So this year, I kind of looked at our revenues where I think we're going to be, where we projected, and including all our capital items. And I feel like we might be in a close to like $700,000 deficit instead of a $2 million deficit, because that's what happens when you when you assign fund balance, you're assuming that you're going to come up with a $2 million deficit for the year. And I don't think we'll do that. I think we'll be basically $1.3 million to the good, and we'll come in somewhere at 6 or 7. We have several, departments that were under budget, line items that we didn't expend. So I feel like we'll be under budget there. So assuming that will be 700,000 under break even. I did a calculation for 6/30/24, and I'm also assuming that we allocate $2 million as we did last year to fund capital in the same manner. Now, I still hope that if we do that, and based on my revenue projections, that we would still come in over our budgeted totals and not have a $2 million deficit position. But that would leave us at unassigned of just under $16 million. Our target for unassigned would be right at 13 million. In our policy, it says that our target unassigned is 30% of our revenues.
Repeat that one.
In our fund balance policy, it says that our target unassigned is 30% of our revenues.
And what happens if it's more or less?
We had to come up with a plan to replenish it.
We are. And I can follow that part.
Oh, that's right. So at the end of 23, we had an unassigned of 16 million. I'm projecting that we will be at 15.9 at the end of 2024. Okay, that's fine.
A couple of things, but on the building permits, you estimated an increase of just 100,000. But it seems like with some of the new development that we have coming that we're aware of now, that would fall a little bit over that.
It may, but since building permits is not recurring income, I mean, you don't get the same dollars from those properties over and over again. And, in a perfect world, I would like to have what I would call like a pipeline report. And I've talked to Jesse, and Jesse's like, they might come to see me, they might start building, they might not. Rebecca has plans that she reviewed, they might start, they might not. So it's just very difficult. So I wanted to be a little more on the conservative side as far as that goes.
Yeah, like I researched, our municipal court fines are really low compared to other towns of similar size, but we have a new prosecutor now. It looks like we're just estimating the same 275,000 in revenue from that. So
Again,
prosecutor would really go up.
I hope it does.
Yeah.
I hope I can report back next year and say that it did, and I missed the mark on that. I don't want to be aggressive on every line item. I think that it's not my nature typically anyhow, but
We are thankful. We are thankful for that.
And I'll interject real quick if you don't mind. Well, I'm gonna address some of that whenever I do my presentation as well on these revenues, but it's some new information that we have. I think I'll be pleasantly surprised about. So,
Good. Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Um,
Sorry to interrupt.
Then the sale of assets, we're just estimating around 75,000, so we're being really, really, really conservative with these numbers.
I don't know how many police cars or other admin vehicles that we may surplus or situations change, and yeah, I am being very conservative, absolutely.
Right.
Any other questions about
Yeah.
any other questions about anything else on this? I know fund balance is not a fun thing to talk about or calculate.
Just a comment. Part of our fund balance policy, especially with where our fiscal year ends, it's extremely important to recognize we go $12 million in the hole over the first 7 months.
That's correct.
Just based on the way our expenses start and our revenues come in the first part of the following year. So we do have to be very mindful that we're basically cash flowing the front half, first half of our fiscal year.
That-
Our fund balance.
That is correct, and that's why we typically discourage capital purchases in the first 7 months. And that is the reason for the target of the $13 million is that we know that we're gonna spend down. And I didn't bring that graph this year, but I had a graph on month by month and it, shows it.
We're getting down to about 13 million, hold that for 6 months.
We're right there. Okay. See what we had first. I do want to just reiterate before the department start their presentations that they all work very hard. We have all of our department heads are very conscious of what they spend. They try to find ways to do things better, spend less money, do things more efficient. So I really do appreciate all the work they put into their budgets. We have talked about a number of things townwide that maybe can save us some money, like bidding out the heating and air contract townwide, getting our cleaning contracts townwide, and not this one and this one and this one, using our purchasing power to maybe get some better costs. In our department, we're looking at another credit card processor to save us some dollars. That's a big amount. So things like that, everybody's looking at. So again, I do appreciate everybody's effort as far as that goes. And if anybody else has other suggestions on things that we can do, we're all open to listen to that. So I do appreciate that. Do you want to take? I don't know if I did or not. So anyway,
Looking at the room before we kind of move into the next phase, does everybody want a quick break? Maybe a 5 or 10 minute.
I was gonna ask that, so.
We are down Richard, and we really. Maybe get on, you on the phone. Oh. It could be.
Go down, Richard.
All right. Lenny, are we unmuted? Okay. We'll go ahead and at least get started here. Ms. Rhonda?
I want to just set the stage for just a moment. Each of the department heads are going to talk about their budget. And, we have a requested column and then a recommended column. As far as, salary increases, we started with 10% because we just wanted to put a number out there. The department heads did not come to us and say, we want 10%. We wanted to be consistent across all departments and just see where that got us, see what room we had. We then ended up with a 6% increase, which to us would be viewed as a merit pool, up to 6%. I don't expect all departments to, if this is approved, to maybe not use it all, but up to and based on performance evaluations. But anyway, they probably will not address salaries in particular in their budget presentations. So just kind of wanted to set that stage a little bit. And I'll turn it over to Lisa. And I know this is hard to read. You should have these charts in your books.
Thank you, Rhonda. The administrative budget did not change much from what we had last year. I did want to point out that there are no new positions in next year's proposed budget. We do have one vacant position that's funded, and that's the administrative assistant position. That was also funded this year, but they have to do it. Under professional fees, we do have from the 2024 budget to 2025, it went down just slightly. But we do have, I hope, enough funding in there for what you're thinking as far as position and that have to be partner with some of those. Okay, that happened, but that's where that 2%.
Okay.
You will see an uptick under contractual services, and that is really due to the contract that the council recently approved. We did talk last month, I believe, about the community newsletter that was actually moving forward to discuss at budget retreat. I do feel like we're able to absorb that under. So it's funded without a change to the budget. And then really the only other change you're going to see is under IT. And you'll see that jump in computer maintenance and support agreements. And really the only reason for that is we decided to combine the line items. They're just so similar that we combine those two. And
I know we're in the search for an administrator. I don't know what rate that person is going to accept when we find the right person. Do you think we have enough in the salary and wage category to make sure that we are able to support somebody?
I do between the percentage increase about there.
Okay.
So that and of course the vacancy that like do not fill at least for a few months. Got to get that person. Yes, I based on the numbers that we talked about at this year, we set up that vision plan, I think that cost, and that's $150,000. That's still what we're going to take. I believe the vision plan we did years ago, Jesse, what about closer to 275?
I think it was like 225.
Okay.
I think that was total, but I think what we had thought, because we were looking at doing potentially partnering with the county,
Right.
that they would have a percentage that would go in as well, so we wouldn't be covering the full cost.
And,
I think was the thought process behind it.
and I know we discussed, we're not discarding the old plan.
Right, we're working off an
We're
existing,
basically
yeah.
pulling it back up and saying what's good, what's changed, what needs to be added, and gather all the public input.
And something else to keep in mind is that ways of public outreach have changed pretty significantly since 2014, 2015. There's a lot more digital public outreach that costs a lot less money than doing full public meetings. Not that we won't do public meetings where people come to them, but there's a lot of different ways to do public outreach that are much more efficient cost-wise than there was in 2014.
So, then based on this, with, we have 150,000 in budget. That would be their funding set aside for next year. Staff audit report. They study with that staff audit report or an impact study for finish that impact trial. Well, I think, don't you have funding in professional services that are planning?
I have some, not even, yeah, I think some.
We can certainly look at that on line item, to bump that up a little bit.
You could correct me if my perspective is wrong. If we, the two surveys we did for salaries, and neither of them was actually like that. First one, we just threw it away.
Well, unfortunately, that's been our practice over the years, is to find the study and then. Yeah, which is the problem.
Well, well, it was either greatly raised taxes.
Right.
We do have well, I don't think we've gotten it yet, where Chris is, awesome. We contributed some data to Berkeley County, I believe it was. And they were going to give us the data that they got certainly as far as a salary, but I understand that, what you're also referring to is more of a just staffing level.
Yeah. Hey. I do think, for the most part, we are below. Some areas we're above, some we're below, but a lot we're below. But the staff audit report, with the staffing is our largest expense in the town, and we're using new positions and not really sure what positions we need. I feel like the staff audit report is the smartest thing we could do, if, considering how much we spend on staff, and we would do positions as well. I think someone that knows more than we know, looking at our staff and it's aware that's done it for Charleston, I'm in Charleston, city of Charleston. They just finished their staff audit report and they're the next council meeting. So I would love to see us have that in the budget. I think that's really a good baseline. When we're looking at the position.
One thought I have, I'm not saying that it's not a good and particular now, but we're gonna have a new administrator show up in this first half of the year, where they're gonna get oriented, and they may want to be involved in that decision-making process. And they may have strengths that are different than others and bring kind of maybe that professional edge that we need in that government. It may be better to talk about that after we have our administrator, and maybe something in the mid-year budget. If we are tracking better, we can recognize that we have funds to do that first part of that year when we do. Because I would want our administrator to get in and get settled, and his strengths or her strengths and weaknesses may be different. He or she may be able to help us. I don't know. I don't want to do something ahead of them getting their even. it's worth talking.
The new positions that we are asking for the budget, are those under administration? That they are under the different department?
Each department head should cover those when they, when it comes their time to discuss their budget.
So, About, I talked to you about having a procurement or purchasing agent, that we could go through a contract. And look at everything that we have, I've asked previously for a list of all of the contracts that we have. Everything we have under contract, and like, yes, somebody that can get that together, and also, then all of the purchasing and procurement, that would be handled under administration, right? Right now, it's getting rid of finance, and we do have a friend.
Questions on the administration? On a budget request?
What if it falls under our maintenance agreement from $25,000? Elevator maintenance agreement or maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I have to look. Yeah,
But clearly, I mean, we're spending it on something, we, our actual expenses. We can burn $3,000. So we just have to.
and we are trying to, identify all of those townwide, just so we can put our eyes on everything, see what we can combine, see what we can do better on. And we also, have some contract software that in conjunction with our bid software, that I think is gonna be a great help in us managing our contracts and renewal dates and all that.
Is that your, the water agreement?
Um,
48,000.
yeah, it was $3,000. I just actually initiated that.
Dan.
I,
Without having the detail print out before, it's more to,
For $40 million budget.
right. I think everyone will forget about that,
anything else?
You have questions?
I will try to get some of the answers for you on those items. All right, can we move on to finance? Excuse me. Our budget's pretty simple. I will start out by saying in our, in personnel, we did, request a position that would be shared between building inspections and finance to be a citizen concierge. And it would certainly involve planning as well, because it's very difficult for somebody, that's new to doing business with the town, it doesn't do it as a regular part of their job, to navigate, as far as I can tell, all of our different departments. And unfortunately, I don't know what happens in permitting or planning, except for they do all kinds of magic over there. And it's just, I think it would be helpful. They would not have, 100% knowledge of all departments, but at least have enough working knowledge that they could walk someone through all the steps. I envision this person would also back up permitting clerks and business license clerks during their busy times. Right now, we are processing business licenses for 5,000 businesses. I mean, you have to touch it twice. You have to approve it and then take payment. So that is a lot of transactions for a small staff. And obviously you don't want to be staffed up, for that particular incident, because in October, you don't need that kind of staff. So having somebody that can kind of be a floater, help our citizens primarily, and then provide some extra help to other departments, I think would be very beneficial. We've kind of estimated that salary position to be around at the most 60,000, and we would split that with building inspections as far as how we have funded it. So it is included in this budget, and Rebecca can talk about it more as far as how it relates to her department. Other budget items in my department are
Before you go past that, thank you for creating that opportunity, because I hear a great deal about folks who get lost in our process. So any way to help support our citizens, and it's generally the smaller projects that, just, mom and pop kind of thing that they're working on, and they get lost in the process, and it takes them 6 months and creates a great deal of frustration, and even additional costs on their end, just because of being confused with the process. I think this is great service for our citizens who are trying to do some things. So I think it's important. So thank you. Thank you for doing it.
and we have, our citizen base, we have all different kinds of people and businesses. And, I had a business owner come in the other day, and she had a tax return, and she said, I need to renew my business license and I don't want to do it online. I said, okay. and we helped her. So, we try to be efficient, and it certainly does help us be efficient. If we had a lot of walk-ins, we would need more staff, and we don't want to encourage that, but we want to have a way for people who want to walk in and see our faces. I like to see the people. And talk to them about what they're doing.
But flip side, you've got a lot of people do with people mind.
That's right. We do.
People that grasp the concept.
So we need to have a balance there. So anyway, so we're hoping that works. We've got it worked into the budget at this point, but we'll talk about those later. Under our other operating expenses, the primary thing that we have in our budget is the audit fees and contract fees for ADP that performs our payroll. Other than that, we have less than $20,000, $15,000 in just operating expenses. I'm hoping that what we have enough for ADP, because that's about what we spent last year. But I think we have the process down pretty good. We're very lucky to have switched to ADP. I'll tell y'all that. When I walked in the door, and some of you may not know, we had one precious employee who was very diligent, who processed payroll by hand, and she never took a day off or didn't, but it consumed all of her inputting time cards all week. Now with ADP, it's certainly a lot more efficient. It spread the work around, and our payroll clerk actually has a little bit of time to help do some other things within the department. So it's a much more efficient process. So other than that, that's only all I have in my budget. Any other questions?
Okay.
All right.
The rest of you don't have to come up here, but my father texted me this morning to let me know I had a meeting that I didn't know about apparently. It reminds me that he can never hear me, though I'm a loud person apparently. So, Father, hello. I'm at the right track today, so you can hear me and everybody else. All right. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome the 3 new members, Council Lady Johnson Wilson, Councilman Waring, and Councilman Halter. It's a pleasure to have y'all here. This is your first time with me in a budget meeting, so I'm gonna try to give you a little bit of background to catch you up. I think I've extended an invitation to all of you to come to the court to visit, ask me any questions. I've opened door policy. I will answer everything the best I can. So if anything comes to mind after today, feel free to reach out to me and we'll make it work. All right, Council Lady Johnson Wilson asked about revenues. I'm going to start there. Number one, just to lay the playing field correct, and no pun intended, the court does not, we're not the ones who create revenues. We're more of a clearinghouse to bring the money in. So if we're looking at a football field, the court is a neutral site. I'm the referee. And we got two teams on the field. All I can do is call touchdowns, field goals, and that's about it. And some penalties from here from time to time. So that being said, I think the budget is always about $275,000 that was pointed out. However, when we started pulling numbers, we don't necessarily have a revenues issue as far as like putting fines in place. Our issue is recovering what is owed to us. So right now, in addition to, I think you said $257,000 is what we've collected year to date, or from beginning of fiscal year to now. We actually have $454,000 to be collected from May of last year to today. Since 2010 until today, we have $5.1 million to be recovered. That's a lot of money. We got to figure out how to collect that. Not necessarily my position as judge. The clerk of court plans on working with finance department to recoup some of that money. We're going to look at doing some kind of capital services. What do we need to do? We've been using set off debt in the past, which is where they go take money back from people's taxes. So probably about next month or two, we'll probably see a big hit before the end of the fiscal year. But that can only go back to 3 years. There's some hiccups with the state on that in our system, but there's still $5.1 million outstanding right now owed to the town of Somerville. We don't take the entire thing. Usually Rhonda and I try to figure out what the sliding scale is with the state, but the town usually recoups about 40 to 45% of all fines that are imposed. I think on y'all's monthly report that y'all get that Beth will send out, if you look at the bottom of ours, it actually has a breakdown of like 2 tickets to kind of give you an idea of exactly what that breakdown looks like. But it's usually about 40 to 45% that we will take us to town. The rest will go to the state and to other funds. Any questions on that? I agree with Council Lady Johnson Wilson that in addition to now having a prosecutor and a public defender and formalizing the court more, you would think that there might be a shift in revenues. Again, that's not really for me to weigh in on, but I think there's all the pieces in place for us to make a move, or for the town to make a move on that. And we should probably see more cases. They're going to be disposed of, whether it be like guilty or go to jury trials, and probably expedite the process. So we're hoping that's going to be a big push to get the docket cleared up and get these fines imposed. Any questions? Now, Rhonda also said we weren't going to talk about salaries, but I am. Before they decided they were going to put any kind of percentage in for asking for raises, I already intended on asking for raises for the ladies in the court. To give you a little history for our 3 newest members and a reminder for the others. When I first started at the end of 2020, we had 7 clerks. At that point, the court administrator wanted to actually add 4 more clerks, and we had 4 judges. Ever since I've been there, we're down to 4 clerks now, and we're down to 3 judges. So we've had a huge shift in how we run things. I run a very efficient program. That's all I care about, is making sure we're getting done as much as possible with as little as possible. I'm born and raised here. The money is also mine as well. That's being used as taxpayers' money, and I'm very big on making sure we spend it correctly. We are asking for probably roughly 10% of an increase for the ladies. If you look at the budget, it actually would not change our budget much from last year to this year, as we have positions that one has been funded in the past that we're going to take off the board for now. We'll keep it open but not fund it. And then we still have leftover money from the last judge who left. So it kind of be self-financed in a way from what we've always been operating under. So we're not asking for an increase of our budget. We're asking for it to stay the same and let us reapportion the money to the clerks who've been working there, 1 for 20 years, 1 for 15 years, 1 for 10 years, and 1 for 5 years. I think you kind of have to pay for stability, and that's one thing the court does have. Any questions on that? And I'm probably talking very quickly because I don't want to keep everybody waste of time. Yes, sir.
So that increase was included in what is under the 2025 requested.
Yes, sir. And a little increase from one of the judges. One of the judges asked for a little increase. She kind of takes, whenever I take time off, I generally try to work around the court schedule, make sure it's just whenever we have bonds. And the clerk of court is also administrative recorder, so she can handle bonds as well. So I try not to disrupt the schedule as much as possible, but sometimes I have to be gone. And one judge is actually available to work during the weekdays. And so she asked if she could get a little bit of an increase. And so we did put that in there. But I can give you more of the minutia on that if you need to. I think that being said, the only other thing that we were looking at is, oh, and as far, so for 18 months, we've been operating with just 4 clerks. It's working well. Sure, there's some times where it kind of gets a little heady, but overall, we're doing a very good job with it. I don't anticipate hiring anybody probably the next few years. I think when the time comes, I hope you all will trust me when I say I need somebody at that point. We actually do need somebody. In the meantime, we're looking at getting an extern from the law school to help us out with some things throughout the week. And then we're also, and I've talked to Lisa about this as well as Rhonda, about potentially getting an intern. I think it's a good time to bring up this conversation of, I think the town needs to look at working with the universities and colleges locally to develop an internship program to where we're starting to bring people into the town to work with us so that we can start developing talent as opposed to, and everybody in here has already done it before, going out there and hiring people based on applications, resumes, and not really knowing what you're getting. And I think it'd be a really big thing, one, for public stewardship, to sit there and reach out to these colleges and universities and identifying people who are talented to come work for the town. And then that way we can kind of work with them for 6 months to a year to develop that and figure out whether they're good or not. A lot of times we're wasting money and trying to develop talent that doesn't work out, and we're having to start the process over again. So I think that's something we should look into. Any questions?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank.
I have a general question.
Yes, sir.
So the 2025 request is basically what you asked for, every department asked for. So everyone requested one, goes into a pool. You find out that we're over budget, because that's how we get recommended. So he asked for $2,000 less than the current year budget, you just go to our heritage.
I didn't hear that last part. I'm sorry.
For you to do what you need to do.
I believe, well, Ron and I talked about it yesterday. I think the numbers might be slightly off versus when we met, we actually went through and said exactly what we wanted the salaries to be. I'm not so sure if that's exactly what the requested is or not. It is only for the 4 clerks and 1 judge. I'm not included in that at all, or anybody else.
Your salary is included in that.
Oh, it is included.
It is
I
included.
wasn't intending on taking a raise this year. I wanted to make sure they were taken care of first.
I don't believe it is quite enough to take care of what Trey. He's reducing.
That's okay.
So he was asking for actually $2,000 less than the current year budget. And I'm still going.
Well, that included, we put a 10% increase that we did across the board for everybody. So we took that salary category for everybody and reduced it to 6%. No, that doesn't mean we can't tweak this department.
So the request is included a 10% increase.
Yeah.
And then you realize 50, that, I dropped that back to 6.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
townwide.
Yeah, townwide.
Okay.
So we didn't really look.
Yeah.
We didn't look at
That's-
any specific changes on any department outside of that 6%. Like that, doesn't mean it can't happen.
Yeah, that explains a lot.
Yeah, it's just a general question.
Is that it? Any more questions? All right, thank you.
That's great.
Like that. You thought you were done.
Yeah.
I did. I was trying to run over there too.
Why is such a discrepancy in the actual from years past? Was, do you have openings that were funded?
We usually carry 1 open position,
Okay.
each year. So we run about 10% under budget yearly. And then we don't use all of our training and all that. It's in there just in case. I think we changed so our contractual services right here is for security. So we have 3 security guards. The court takes 1/3 of those for one of the security guards. I think we renegotiated those contracts last year, right? But generally we don't spend all the money in there. One of the big things that probably changes the most for us, and I think we've accounted for it this time, is the overtime. So we do have the 2 judges work on the weekends, and then, so we didn't have to hire anybody. The clerks each work 1 weekend, so they kind of get like double overtime in a way. Because it's like time and a half and then time and a half again, because if they work the entire week, they get paid for the weekend work plus the overtime. But that saves us from actually having to hire for another position and paying out for insurance, benefits and everything else, and a liability of another employee. So that's why the overtime sits where it is. And they usually run a little bit over that. We try to estimate it the best we can. Some of the clerks actually work to get the double, as we call it. And some of them just take it Friday off instead and just work the weekends.
Are you trending about the same this year as far as your expenses go?
Yes, sir.
Not your look back.
But yeah, we're still about 10, we're running about 10% under. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
the likelihood of reducing that 5.1 million, or is there a percentage or what customary?
We won't be able to do it all with set off debt, that's for sure. We did very well. I think we got a few $100,000 in set off debt, right? Last year, like we did a lot more than what we usually have. We made a big push last year for the set off debt of getting it from the tax money. I think what we're going to do is look at capital recruiting services and see exactly who kind of offers the best rate to see. That's a toss up, really and truly. I don't know, because some of those are outstanding like 15 years. So I'm not so sure how easy it is to recoup money when it's that long outstanding debt. Yes, ma'am.
I would think that we could get 10%, that we'd be going bad. I mean, we don't know if maybe people are deceased or we don't have a clue what the population looks like.
How far is that?
2010.
You know, back 3 years, which said,
For set off debt, we can only go back 3 years. And like I said, for debt services, I don't know how far back they can go on that. But, and that's just, we decided to start at 2010 to see. I mean, it's very possible you could go further back and there's more out there. Now, the state usually will suspend their license if it's a traffic ticket. Depending on what kind of charge it is, you can also put a bench warrant out there, but if there's a bench warrant, they're usually going to sit in jail instead of paying. So it's kind of it depends. But last year, New York City discovered they have $1 billion from 2017 to 2022 in outstanding fines for traffic and parking. So it could be worse, or it could be better, depends. Anything else?
Please recognize where we can improve.
Sure. It's definitely a learning curve. I mean, I've only been doing this full time for 4 years, and Lisa's been instrumental in helping me figure things out, as well as Rhonda and Dan. And so each year we kind of figure out a new piece of the puzzle and trying to do better every day. Any other questions? Thank you.
My first time, just so. Starting with personnel, kind of on the same boat as Viv Jameson. Over the past 2 years, the building department's been operating with 3 staff let. We reduced that to help kind of reduce the expenses, and everyone's been kind of pulling together and helping each other out to cover their workload. The question of whether or not those positions should be held open has come up, and though we won't need those positions this year, I would like to position to be held open because we're anticipating that the development growth, the workload is going to be increasing exponentially, so we will probably be asking for those positions back next year. That's something to look at next year, why that will probably be increasing. And also echoing on Rhonda's presentation about the additional position that we're going to be including for the concierge. We do have a lot of green people to development that don't understand how all of the flow works, on how to get a project indoor and out of the ground, built and PO'd. And to be honest, I don't think many people understand the connection. So this position is going to have a little bit of knowledge of everything in the department. You come in and you get your permit, and you're like, oh, I didn't know I needed a clearing permit. So this person's going to help them with all the details, so that nothing's overlooked, reduce that frustration. So we're really looking forward to someone that really have that knowledge. Going into the other expenses for our department, we don't have a lot of expenses that we're requesting. There's a couple of, what we requested versus recommended that's kind of altered a little bit, and I'll kind of give you the details of why we requested it. We really do try to operate on a 2-stream budget. One of the line items that we requested specifically was the uniform and clothing. We requested $2,000, and that's because we're trying to get our code enforcement officers bulletproof vests. They go into some pretty, heated situations, and we like to have them protected. We have 3 officers that go into these situations, and the cost for that is $900 each, approximately. So that's why we're asking for $2,000. That covers the vest and a couple of shirts, for the staff throughout the year. The other item that we were asking for an increase was in a special project. We use the funding in this item to, demolish homes and for structures that have been condemned. That's proposed, first posing a threat to, safety of the community. The cost of demolishing a home has significantly increased over the years. The last quote we received was almost $17,000 to demolish the home. We have right now on the books, I believe, 7 homes that need to come down, and at the rate we're going, we couldn't even afford to do that one this past year. So we were asking 30,000 so that we could do potentially 2 homes or 2 new structures next fiscal year. So that's why that number was requested. But that's pretty much all that I have, unless y'all have any questions.
For public safety, for the house, and they have officer, any opportunity for training.
Absolutely. We take a full advantage of it. We've done quite a bit, just in the town limits and just outside. So we take full advantage of that, for sure.
Okay, I know the police department there, because they destroyed one of the houses I was tear down, but still burn.
Yes, sir. We conducted one a couple months back. It was a larger structure on Maple Street crossing the lumber mill. We held out of town training. They came in from all over the southeast. We learned for a couple of days. I think we got years of use out of that building, so it was really beneficial for us. Sure,
It's good to hear. It's good to hear.
These purposes that need to come down, go to council or committee before their terms to be sorted out. No, we do our own assessment. I have some pictures with some that we've done in the past, if you like. Is that based on? How is that determined? I just staff size or we get community complaints, that there may be vacancy, there may be, just concern that it's long down. There's some pictures like that.
So when you demo a house, we also put a lien on the project and try to replace such house.
They just point that out. You do actually put a lien on the homes that we, demolish. It's a matter of whether how long it will take for us to get that back. We actually did, back for one we did in 2022. We got the money back in November, of last year for $8,000. So.
Also, when we do general budget of building, do we use all of our own equipment or do we even have to hire out?
We have to hire them out. We need to put these out from it. Yeah, so all of these companies here bid this. Yes, we did, the 3 bids and we go with the low bidder. The first one on the package here is pricey. It's because the brick home and cost of removal of brick and the solar wheat is very pricey. Now, what if these are historic properties that they're not? So, what totally they are, is there a process and or not? I mean, I know these are, but when they are, is there a process? There's one in the sort of district, so
If it's in the historic district, it would have to go through the DAR to get approval for demolition.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like that.
That's what the officers authorized to do the, code as far as building official has authorization to do that, correct? Is that right? Well, building official gets authorization to do that based on the code, the international code, right?
Yes.
Building
The
code.
code does say that the state structure and have to come down, and we don't automatically order repairs to come down.
Right.
It's a legal process, you send out notices, let them know they're in violation of something in the code, and it does have to be removed with overpayers. And after going back and forth for a month, and it's determined that they want it removed, but they can't afford it. We proposed to them, but well, we can do it for you. But you have to sign this, know that realizing that we're going to bring on the property, and when you sell it, we're going to do that.
I see there's quite a difference in one contract is charging you to demolish a house. And there's another contract that's charging a whole lot more. Is this based on the size of the property?
It's based on the size of the structure and, what all the work they're gonna have to do. Like I said, the first one, it was a very pricey project, but those are the different costs. the cost of removing dirt is expensive and we show, yes.
We've had some demolished in District One. And, we helped, probably put out forward the deposit themselves. And, I know that we used to do it to some extent. I think this is a good thing that we do because it increases the value of the community. And, so it's,
Does each department, would y'all post the permit notice on the website? Is that how that works?
I think it does not meet the threshold for doing that. We just contact local, demolition companies that we've dealt with in the past and have them go out and give us prices. I think that would be a little better. These quotes are from previous, going back in time, so from 2015, 2019, and then current. And it just kind of shows how prices have gone up and just how it varies depending on the property. For example, mobile home doesn't cost as much to do, obviously, like I said, like the brick home. And it's, I mean, we will get the money back eventually. When the home sells or when the property sells, it'll come back.
Like I said, do you have a amount, that the permit amount is for it?
25.
Yeah. Just that department heads will make the determination of up to 25,000, and then after that, if it goes to permit.
It's, under 25,000, month 5, I think. We have to get it.
But we don't post that. Okay, above 5 and under 25, and then over 25,
We're doing an additional part. Our bid.
yeah.
It is.
Was.
Did we bump that?
Yeah, that's.
Okay,
Yeah.
so department, so anything under $50,000 does not have to go to the permit.
Well, you still go through the competitive process, like it was
Three
But-
bids.
yes. Well, yeah.
That's a lot of money. You just get a couple of bids and not put that out for the permit, $50,000.
We just did that last year.
Yeah, I think I remember.
I think the intent behind it was to get us somewhat out of the way and provide the department heads more flexibility in getting things done quicker, more efficiently for some of these things.
We did a comparison with other municipalities and counties, what their procurement policy was. And we were significantly less, and it was years, we were at the same number, so.
Well, if you don't demolish these properties, you bring value down and that community with it.
Oh, yeah, I think that's, I
But
agree.
if you demolish the property, you increase the value of all homes in life. That increases the taxes that you have to get. So we don't pay any taxes. So it's something that.
Just for reference, the county is 75,000. And this is all the rest of that.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Nice job. For a good round.
Anything prepared? Yeah.
Right, this is my first time to do that. I can vouch for you. The building engineering, everything is, other than personnel is same and things.
I'm happy to report that we all have fully staffed. We, at the beginning of the month, we hired a new staff engineer. It was originally an entry level position, but then we had the issue of people getting trained, coming in and leaving. So it's more of a middle, similar to the engineer. And this traffic engineer also does a lot of the staff engineer does traffic engineer. So we lost traffic engineer for we. So, yeah, I'm just happy to report that we, fully staffed and, nothing else is changing. I'm reflecting some money for sidewalk projects and the capital ready to go into that, or if we're gonna do that. Well, we can talk about it. Oh, and that we want to turn the street sidewalk construction and other various sidewalk projects. We're getting our priority list together, working with our FICA budget action committee. Our capital.
I covered a lot more when we talked about. We'll do that. Okay.
But in engineering specifically, just nothing really changed. We're happy to answer the questions.
Questions on the engineering side?
That's my question.
Yeah.
Right. Here's Sean Gibbons. He is our chief of IT for public safety. And I've been speaking on behalf of communications here because it falls under my realm for the past 2 years in my position. But certainly it's not my wheelhouse. I figured it'd be best to bring the in-house expert into you. We've talked many times over the past few years about the town of Somerville's communications as far as police and fire and how critical it is for us to make sure that we stay on top of technology moving forward, that we're keeping our subscriptions and our different contracts up to date, as well as we're always having to replace hardware and software. He's going to talk to you today, obviously, about the budget, but I'll jump in where need be on some of the things, but we're talking critical need. That you're going to see extra in this is a position that we've asked for 3 years. This will be the last time, obviously, hopefully we'll have to ask for it, but to give you an idea and I'll explain it to you, Sean is an IT person, much like Lenny. Lenny handles town hall and the other complexes. He handles all the police department and all the fire department, all the fire departments, and their equipment, trucks, everything else, police cars. So I won't give you a lot of attention, but this is Sean, and you'll be seeing a lot more of him. I invited him to this meeting, but I felt that it was important to hear from the expert from him. So.
All right, so once this, I'm another first, so we'll have a competition. It looks like the salary and wages have stayed, are actually coming down a little bit. As far as that goes, I'll let Doug talk more about that, but I'll go more into the actual operating expenses. Maintenance and subscription services is at 275, which is down a little bit. We are doing some moving around between there was a communication, or I'm sorry, maintenance and subscriptions line item with the police department and some with the fire department. We kind of combined some of those together, but it made more sense to be under the communications as far as like radio maintenance and subscription fees such as that. Communication stays about the same. I think we actually combined the cellular phone into the well, it was combined last year, it looks like, into the communications budget. Training stays about the same. Other operating expenses all the same. The main there's really not much more to report on that as far as those equipment. The non-capital equipment is going to be such as computers and network infrastructure that needs to be replaced on a yearly, or not yearly, but every year there's something needs to be replaced. So we stay in compliance with certain CJIS standards and that and whatnot. What about the capital?
Yeah, so real quick, just to kind of touch, if you see our requested items for communications for police and fire, you look down in the non-capital line, you'll see that we went from, $21,367, and then, we requested $489,995. That's been moved over to capital, which will be discussed later, but that's for replacements of the replacement plan of portable radio, the police and fire. We used ARPA money last year to buy, I think, 30 police and 20 fire, with 5-year replacement. We're in year 2. So we're in year 2 of 5. And so we used ARPA money last year, and that will replace and upgrade all the current radios and also allow us to have GPS and Wi-Fi capability. So we'll be able to see who the firefighters are and where the policemen are as well.
So as far as the radio refresh goes, we have two main types of radios that we carry with us. One is a portable radio and the other one's a mobile radio for the vehicles. Currently, right now, between fire and police, so this is public safety wide, we have 260 mobile radios, 88 with fire, 172 with the police department. Each one of those radios has a model number on it, and there's a designation of that model number for AN and BN. AN would be the older models that are actually have already reached their end of life and end of service in December 2023. We still have quite a few of those left. Motorola is still fixing them as long as they have the parts to fix them. But we're hoping with our refresh plan, we'll have those replaced within the next 2 years or so. The other issue with that is Palmetto 800, which is our service provider, something a lot like Verizon is for your cell phone. Palmetto 800 supplies us with the radio connectivity that we can use. They're moving to a new technology called TDMA in around 2026, and a lot of those AN radios will not be will not accommodate that new technology. And the ones that can, because they're out of their service life, we would not be able to upgrade them. So far we've replaced 125 of those portable radios, and that puts us about 48% complete on replacing the portables. The mobile radios, we have a little bit longer time span on those. Those will reach their end of life. The ANs will reach the end of life in 2027. So we're trying to stay on top of those. As far as the police department goes, we are trying to replace those as we replace vehicles. So when we buy a new vehicle, we buy a new radio and replace those as that goes. Fire department's a little bit different because we don't refresh fire trucks as often. So as we approach that date, we may have to increase that refresh rate on the AN radios. So far, like I said, on the mobiles, we've only replaced 30 of those so far, but we have more time to replace those. So that's where you see the increase there for I lost it. Where'd it come out? In the non-cap. That's going to cover, we're trying to do 30 radios for police, 20 for fire. And the reason why fire is a little bit less, they don't have as many radios. So we're trying to do it as a percentage to get them up to speed. And that with those, the handheld radios, they're on the police side with the proper accessories, the lapel mics and batteries and things of that sort come out to be about $7,000 a piece. The fire radios, which have a higher heat rating and water resiliency, and also their lapel mics, they are about $8,000 roughly a piece. So with that, we're also catching up some of the BNs that we've already replaced, or the ANs that we've replaced with BNs. There's some flash codes that need to be replaced to bring them up to Wi-Fi capability, which gives us more radio management capabilities, and also it's a enhanced data is what they call it, but that will give on the law enforcement side the radios the ability to be tracked by GPS. So when we're on manhunts or we're trying to locate officers that are not near their vehicle, which is already tracked, we'll be able to get a better idea of where they are. And in manhunt situations, a better ability to make perimeter and Chief can talk more about that. So that's the reason for that. I know we were talking about procurement earlier. These are purchased on state contract and pretty much directly from Motorola themselves. There's sole source and state contract involved in that, so. The position, currently, we have two IT people that work for public safety. That's myself, I'm a network administrator, and I have one IT tech there, Tyler Bassano. Just a quick rundown on why we believe this is necessary to bring in. I would like to see two more, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. Right now, we manage up to 444 portable and mobile radios, 150 desktops and laptops, 110 mobile data terminals, which are the tablets that go inside of the police vehicles, 110 plus mobile video camera systems, 167 body-worn cameras, network infrastructure of 20 network switches and 6 routers in 5 different locations, and we're about to add 5 more with the police department, fire department, as we increase their network and bring their network in. 106 cameras located at the police department and fire department in the downtown areas, Somerville, and we also have a ticketing system so we can give our users the quickest ability to get help. And we've responded to 1,300 service requests and 1,400 sensor incidents since April 2023. So we stay busy. And as we increase more of that network and increase our technology, the more requests are going to be needed and to keep that stuff going. So we need more people to handle that. What we're proposing is another network administrator to basically take my spot. I would step up to the IT director, and that next network administrator would help me with some of the larger projects of deploying these networks, keeping up with the network infrastructure such as switches and routers. And we, there's not something we can just buy and just forget. We have to stay in compliance with a lot of different compliance agencies such as CJIS. And as the fire department moves forward into, if they start handling more medic calls, we'll have to be HIPAA compliant as well.
So basically talk about what we're trying to do is you see the workload, Lenny stood before you mid-year, so did Chief Melcher, and we talked about the need for this. I know Chief Waring also, Councilman Waring was also in agreement. This is long past overdue. I just want to give you some perspective of our low country neighbors. Georgia County has 20 IT personnel in various positions, 2 assigned to libraries only. So you think about Lenny having 20 Lennys for the county. That's too many. Yeah. But back before you started, we are way behind the on IT. We really are. Everything it used to be when everything was analog, we're doing on paper. Everything was done. Everything now is moved off the internet. It's moved to the cloud. It's moved. You know, everything is, you know, radio transmission. All the stuff we do, that's all done by these gentlemen here. Berkeley County has 31 personnel assigned to IT. And we are talking about a county, but they're not, that doesn't include programmers for radios and for GIS. Charleston County has 11 personnel just assigned, 11 IT people assigned to their consolidated dispatch center alone. So he is running our dispatch center, he's running police and fire technology, and also everything to do with radios. And then Goose Creek Police Department has 4 IT people that they have to lean on. So I can tell you, speaking on behalf of Lenny, that we need more of him and more of Sean's moving forward. Obviously, we can't, don't have for one thing at a time, but we've asked for 3 years. I'm asking you, strongly urging you to please consider this. We haven't asked for anything as far as manpower from the police department. And I stand by the fact that we really need to have this to be able to remain. It's mission critical. It is. To have him as an IT coordinator is mission critical. So good.
Good. So was this position, was it included in our balanced budget? It is
included.
Okay.
And he'd be moving into an IT coordinator position. So somebody, he come in and he literally has to stop what he's doing to go, he'll be in the middle of a mission or a job, as you call it, working on something, putting in something for the fire department, and he'll get called away. So the person that, we took a police position 3-4 years ago and made that an IT position. It's not really an IT, it's a ticket person. So basically they submit these 1,400 tickets he's talking about. That comes in, that's because the printer's offline in the cruiser. The scanner that scans driver's license doesn't work. their printer or their GPS is off, same with the fire trucks, the apparatus. That's just take work tickets, so if he's set up everything in Dominion Energy, the Dominion complex, we took it over, that took 3 months of almost undivided attention, which took away from other things to get that up and going, so we just really need this, I think everybody in this room, is hearing what we're saying, and I don't think there's much more needs to be said about that, so. Get questions, Josh?
So quick question about the radio, for the non-capital line item. And I know you know, the city looked out with the capital, is probably where it needs to be, but it's, that's gonna be essentially a reoccurring capital expense every year, right?
It will probably fluctuate. We're trying to catch up now. I think one of the biggest problems was during COVID and we weren't able to spend as much money, and so it kind of put us behind. And now we're trying to play catch up on that. So that will be a recurring expense to a certain extent. These radios are they have a shelf life about 8 years, 8 to 10 years, depending on when Motorola rolls out something new and then start the end of life. So it will not be as high as it is now because we are playing catch up, and we're plan on getting a refresh schedule that will be more, yeah. But we want to try to get the best life that we can out of them, so we don't want to replace them just for the sake of replacing them. After that 8 years or so, we may see another increase, a large increase in cost on that.
I think it's great, we should be saying that, that's
Right.
That's lifeline.
Yes, it is.
For both. Radio, so, inexpensive.
Any more questions on the communication science?
If that is going to be a recurring charge, why do you have that in capital?
It's
Yeah, I know, I was gonna say, I think that's gonna be switched, I think for this year, we were showing it in capital just because of the change, such a.
Yeah, I mean, on an individual basis, it may not meet the criteria for a capital item that needs to be depreciated. It's a one-time, it is a one-time expense to a degree because we're catching up. And it's a large item, and I don't feel like it's really an operating item as such. And we can treat it as a role for, I think it'll work to do.
Switch it back once we get through this bigger hump
Yeah.
to an operational line item that communication.
Any projection on where we'll be next year?
Yeah.
I mean, about the ballpark, are we thinking half of that next year, or are we thinking 3/4 of it?
We will probably have, if we stick with the 50 radios, we have 135 more to go. So basically, 2.5 is on that.
$137,000 less than that right there, because that includes retrofitting all the radios, which we will not have to do in the future. So
Correct.
137 from that cover.
So basically another 350 or something for next year, so that's a little bit, pretty big chunk. But, I know that I got a little bit better history of this, I know it's left behind, but I dealt with it, so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we do need to catch that up, if you're question about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the way I handle the computers. The computers are now on a more regular 4 to 5 year refresh. And so it's not such a big chunk whenever it comes time. We'll just have to come up with a plan to kind of refresh them. The good thing about the maintenance agreements is we can hold them for a little bit longer, as long as Motorola continues to support them. But some of them, they're going to be through wear and tear, we'll have to replace them, and then those will be moved on to the next model, basically. So it's just hard to tell until they actually create the end of life on some of this hardware, that we can actually put together a good refresh program to know how many years it's going to take.
Josh,
Sorry.
That'll be fine.
Can't figure out.
How's everybody doing? Does anybody need a break? We're pretty good. We're just over an hour. Muscle group, okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'd also like to echo
Judge Jameson's sentiments, welcome the three newest council members. I also want to thank council for the continued support that they've provided to the police department over the past month or so. It's been a rough patch, but we're getting through everything. I just appreciate the support and your confidence in my leadership. I especially want to thank Dan and Rhonda and Lisa for their hard work. I know you get a lot of emails probably through the night, through the days. It's hard to keep up with a lot of it, but they're constantly meeting with us as department heads are constantly having to change things on the fly. And a lot of things we don't like, but we have to do it and we understand that. So I also commend department heads for being open-minded. It can be tough. So starting with our budget for next year, just going down the line, the biggest increase you're going to see in the first part under salaries for 4211 is going to be $175,000. It's $25,000. The increase is from $148,360 and then into the actual 150 to 175 for overtime. And that number jumped up significantly because what we're seeing is more and more incidents where we're having to deploy officers that are off duty. Day one of the new year, we had a barricaded suspect who were holding his parents at gunpoint, and we had our entire SWAT team, our crisis intervention team out there, and they were getting paid holiday pay to be out there until we mitigated that safely, which we did. We've had several other incidents that have required very similar attention to that, where we've had to pay a lot of overtime for people to be out. We've also, anytime we have a vehicular fatality, the reconstruction team has to come out and reconstruct that scene. It takes hours and hours to do, and then they have to come out and pull black boxes out of cars and do all the things. So they do that a lot of times past their normal work hours because of how tedious it is. And then obviously, situations where we have potential threats, where we have to send people to be on standby or to surveil certain things due to crimes or suspected crimes that are occurring in the town. And then, of course, situations like the unfortunate last Friday we had where we adopted or had 3 homicides in one day. So it has been very busy for us. It's not slowing down. And that's why that number has been increased, because we were already over budget on our overtime in January. And it's one of those things that, we offer comp time, but if they don't want the comp time, we do offer that. We have to let them be paid by law. So just moving down, the big number change here you're going to see is from 2023. If you go down to vehicle repairs, we bumped it from down. Excuse me here. My line. All right, vehicle repairs from 212 to 140. We're kind of just playing that by ear. We do have a much older fleet. Roughly 38% of our fleet needs to be deadlined right now, and it's still operating of 100,000 miles more on their cars, which means they're going to have breakdowns, they're going to have collisions, they're going to have things like that. But we are playing that by ear and being pretty safe with that number we put there. If you look down for maintenance agreements, you're going to see that big number of 264,000. It's right above vehicle repairs. $264,389 is down to $73,600. That's because we created a new line item and we created subscriptions. If you go down there, that'll be at the very bottom, and that's where that number has been reduced. We created look over here. So training and meetings, we've steadily been trying to increase our training budget because we're so far behind in other agencies. And what I need to explain is we're constantly having to train. We have to train to stay certified. We have to do annual trainings to maintain certifications for, use of our taser, firearms, de-escalation training, mixed martial arts, defensive tactics training, pepper ball gun, rifle training, rifle recoil, all the things. And that's very, very expensive. So just using the money we use without going to any advanced training really just guts our budget for training. We've been asking for a bigger budget for years, but we've had fortunately, we tried to do that, and we had to put the money into other line items because we felt that, pay raises and different things like that were a little more important at the time. So we're putting that there for up to $75,000. We asked for $50,000 for a new line item for SWAT, mainly because their equipment is very expensive. You know, one of their best alone is about between $1,100 to $1,400 because of the rating on it. And then obviously we're comm gear on their helmets, all the weaponry, the defensive things they have. We were able to get that on there as a line item, but it was we slashed it down to 15,000. Just that will cover ammunition for training, which is very expensive right now because there's a war going on, if you haven't seen, in Ukraine and obviously in Israel as well. Down here, the uniforms and clothing, we're staying just about 5,000 over. Going down to non-capital equipment, we have moved that up to 150 just to be. We had 133. We asked for 165, and we met in the middle about 150. And then if you look down here for computer maintenance, you saw we were at $40,000. We went down to 10. That is because we are working to get these other items moved around so that they're more digestible, as well as the fact that we're staying on top of our refreshes. So is there any question about any of that?
Real quick,
Yes, sir.
fuel and oil
Yes, sir.
or gas, gasoline. Our actuals in 2022 and 2023 are over $400,000.
Yes, sir. That was during COVID. That was during COVID. We couldn't get fuel, and I think everybody was running into that, both police and fire. And we also kept reserves on hand because we just didn't know what was going to happen. So we were very much over budget then, but it has gone down. Obviously, the economy has gotten a little bit better in some cases, but with the wars going on and the pending situations around the world right now, I don't know how much more that's going to change. We kept that up and around the same thing as what we were for 2024 where we're at. So 290.
And then the other item, going back to the training,
Yes, sir.
after our last council meeting, you made a comment to me about, maybe some potential training. Is that
Yes, sir. So,
included?
yes, sir. So we do conduct de-escalation training as well as mixed martial arts training. We obviously with no types of lethality involved in that. But it also encompasses verbal judo and different types of training like that. So yes, sir, our plan is to continue to take a very proactive approach into training to help us become better in the way we speak to people, the way we engage people, and the way that that we escalate on the force continuum as well.
Mr. Mayor and Councilman too. Bill and I talked about training in last the presentation and went also to the fire department about what they have to do to stay sharp to be ready for what they have to do. So that they may need to do a presentation for the safety committee. And the reason I brought it forward because there's so much that expected of police these days to have the city and the government do. And we've always tried to support them, and I know it's expensive from time to time. But we've had pretty good results over the years, and that's the way I'd like to see it go. So we have to support them and what they do to prepare to find the people as to find something that's still peaceful, so trying to find people. So we look forward to that tonight. We can ask some questions together. And there's another thing that we're looking at too, digital stimulation. But I'm trying to take the load off each department, make sure that some of the things that call attention on the department from sometimes it's going to need to try to limit some of these things. It's really not work. It's keep them told.
We have that maintenance agreement and IT expenses under the police, but also under communications. Is that pretty?
Yes, ma'am. I have 39 maintenance agreements. I can provide all of them for you. That is all the subscriptions for police and for communications.
So those are different. Those should be separated, though, like that. The communications, I know it's a new category for us, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we're not moving all police and fire maintenance agreements and IT under that certain fund.
That's, the communications part is pretty much the 911 center, they have their IT, requests and put the IT, expenditure you see here is for just.
Okay.
They maintain them, for example, the 100 cameras, both Lenny and Sean maintain the oversight of those cameras, but that's funded out of the police department, out of H-Tax, most of it. Other matters worth noting, I think it's important to know, we are good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. I know that probably seems hard to comprehend if you're another department head, because I understand, you know, we spend a lot of money. Public safety is not cheap. It's the most expensive asset that government has. But we have been good stewards of taxpayers' dollar, Mr. Mayor. We have used seized drug asset money to buy all new handguns, holsters, and opticals for all of our handguns, which is a tune of over $150,000 that we do not have to ask for taxpayers and other people's money, as you would say, sir, OPM. And so we are doing that in every chance that we can. We are pulling from drug funds, but that money does diminish. And obviously we have to be very careful how we spend that money because there is very strict oversight for state and federal drug funds. But when and if we can, we will spend that money to better our agency. Also too, I would mention, I'm not in the agreement to ever reduce the size of law enforcement, but our CIT team has been something you all funded through ARPA. It was 2 police officers and a counselor through Department of Mental Health. And we understand that money is coming to end in October 31st in the fiscal year federal budget. And what we have proposed to do is, and this is $250,000 that's being taken out of our budget. We've applied for a grant to refund both of those officers. And we've asked Department of Mental Health to step in and fund the clinician. I think there's a critical need because we've shown proof of concept over the past 3 years and 2.5 years. So I feel very good that we will get that grant for the 2 officers and that Dorchester County will come through for us and help us out with that clinician. But what's not said on paper here is for you to know, I don't ever want to reduce public safety in size, but if this doesn't happen, we don't get the grant, we will reduce the size by 2 officers. That money will be absorbed into manpower, and I'll continue. I feel the need to cut edges, and I don't want to cut corners, but the need is critical for that unit to be in action. They've become a pilot unit for many other mothers like it that are coming up around the low country and state. So that's $250,000 that you're not paying into. We're taking that out of our workforce. So it's not talked about openly until today, but I just want you to know that's me trying to meet in the middle along with other capital expenses to try to reduce the footprint without cutting people and still allowing for pay raises, but also working hand in hand with Rhonda and Lisa and Dan to try to still accomplish the mission, as you said, the critical mission, and get it done and do it, allowing for more money to be given back for other departments to be able to utilize in a more holistic fashion. So I just want to say that. Is there any questions? Thank you.
So
Thank you.
we're gonna talk about the gap is.
I've got a request for a break. If we come back and maybe